What you guys, got another video here for you. In this one we're going to be looking at the iPod Touch 4th generation screen replacement. This is the actual iPod here. As you can see, it's took a whack on the screen and it's damaged, needs replacing. Now these digitizers do come with new LCDs on them, and we're going to be doing that in this video. Here's some clamps we're going to be using to clamp down the screen once it's done. A rework station to heat up the glass. Also the new Digitizer and the LCD screen. Some glue strips which we're going to use to glue the glass down with. Some spudgers or prying tools, plastic ones. Some glue gel to add extra adhesive. The suction cup if we need it. Some screwdrivers that come in the kit, which we're going to use to undo the screws. Some guitar picks just in case we need them. Some compressed air to clean out once we're finished. Some tweezers. Also some gloves. And we'll need a metal prying tool which comes in the kit. And also I'm going to be using my favourite prying tool here. This one I'm going to be using for most of the jobs here. It's flexible and very slim. And a pair of scissors. Now if you haven't got a rework station like this, you can actually use an air dryer or something like that. But this has got a much better controllable heat supply. So you can actually control the heat better. Okay, so let's get started anyway. So I'm going to set mine up to about 250. You don't want this too hot. You don't want to be cooking the actual device here. So you're just about 250, just enough to eat up the glue underneath. So we can then pry the glass off. So we're just going to add some heat to this. Now the areas I want to concentrate on is around near the button area. Not on the button itself, but just to the side of the buttons, or the button I should say, and then work around there and up the sides and around the camera area, but not actually on the camera itself. And just keep testing to make sure that it's not getting too hot, okay? You don't want to overheat this stuff, okay? Otherwise you may damage the device itself. Now some of the glass that comes out is a lot easier to get out than others. Depends on how badly it's cracked and where it's cracked. This happens to be probably in the worst place, is right down near the home button. So the home button may get left behind here, which isn't a problem. It looks worse than what it is when you're prying it off. Let's just continue to heat this up until we get enough heat. As you can see, I'm concentrating right down near the side, near the button area there. And that's probably ready to go in a second. Again, you can always reapply more heat if you need to, if you find it's getting a bit stuck. So let's try and pry this glass up from round near the bottom. Now be very careful down the bottom left hand side. That's where I'm starting from. There is an actual speaker wire there, so you want to make sure you get underneath the glass, okay? Now you don't want to be prying where the gasket is or where the actual metal. Make sure you're not going under the metal shield there. You don't want to be getting trying to get underneath that, because you're going to cause more damage. So just pry up under the glass. You can see there it's broken away from the end part, so that's where the crack is. And I'm just going to do a little twist just to free up, okay? If the device comes back on like that, just turn it back off. Okay. You don't want to be having that device on. And again, just pry underneath. I'm sorry my hand's in the way here. But you just want to pry up like that until you get it off. Now you will find, once you start lifting this up, there is a wireless antenna on the top left hand side, okay? So you want to be careful there, and I'll point this out to you in a second, as you'll see. Now sometimes this does stick to the glass, and that is the actual wireless ribbon there. So you don't want to damage that at all. So you just want to actually get the actual prying tool and push down on that to make sure it's glued down, okay, so you don't damage that. Once we've done that, we can then just gently lift off the actual digitizer and the LCD screen there. You can see the actual ribbon right across there. It's glued down, okay, and sometimes it sticks to the top of the plastic and you can damage that. And once we've got that off, like so, we can then get a pair of scissors there and cut that away from the actual unit itself, because we're not going to be using that. Only the two parts on there is the home button and the metal bracket that holds the screen down. So I'm just going to cut this off like so. Again, don't discard this because we will need two components on there. You can see the actual metal bracket there. That's the one we're going to be using. Now you can get this off with your pry tool. Okay, just get your pry tool underneath there and lift that off. And that's going to hold the screen down. Okay, and also you're going to need the home button as well. And the home button is still stuck on the actual device here, which isn't a problem really. So I'll just get my pry tool underneath there. It's where the glass is cracked, so I'm not too worried about that. Sometimes they come off on the top. As they pull the glass up, they come away with the glass. In this case it's not. So let's try and get our pry tool underneath there and pull this button off so we can reuse that afterwards. And I'll just pick off the glass a little bit later on and put that back. Okay, so let's get this bracket off now. So what you'll need to do is just put a little bit of pressure underneath it. It is glued down. You just pry it away with your prying tool there until you get it loose. Now if you need to re-glue this down, you can do. Sometimes there's enough tack on it to glue it back, but I like to just put a bit of extra adhesive. Well, that's the actual bracket there. Okay, so what we're going to do now is clean up some of this glue area here. You can see it all marked in black. Now sometimes yours may be silver and it may be a white residue. It just happened to be the case where the glue stuck to the actual bottom part. So I'm going to peel that off. Okay, every single one of these you do, you'll find that they're different the way you take off the glue. So just get your pry tool out and work away and scrape all that off. Okay. Now you also need to do around the outer rim where I'm prying now. Be careful not to break the actual plastic gasket that goes on the outside there. Just dig out the glue and you'll see it come off in clumps like so. So it's like a little bit like rubber string. Just keep pulling that off until you've worked all that out of the actual device. Now once we've pulled that off, you may see more black stuff around there. You just keep prying away at that black stuff until you get rid of all of it. Okay, it should be silver underneath there. Okay, just be very careful. Just pick away at it. Once you've got all that off, we can move on to the next step. As you can see, I'm just using my fingers to pull that off. It's like tape. Now once we've done that, you'll see here there's like a little clear white plastic thing. I like to get that off as well. Okay, now that's just underneath the glue type, underneath the glue type of stuff they use. So I'm just going to pry that off and pull that away from the unit. Okay, so I want a nice clean surface there so the actual glue can stick to it. Sorry it's gone out of shot there, but I'll just pull that off. Okay, so now you've got that all done. We're now going to remove the actual shield there, the actual silver shield. Now there's where the power cord is. You want to be very careful, and this is glued down in this area where I'm pointing at the moment, and also near there is where the actual glue is. Okay, and you've got 8 screws that we need to remove this actual shield off of there. Okay, and there's 2 up the top which we're going to remove also there, and also the actual cover plate for the camera, okay, on the back of the actual device, and we're going to lift it over like so. Okay, so I'm going to just undo these screws here. I'm not going to show you removing every single screw. I'm just going to undo these screws. They're very small. Okay, now some of these screws are different in lengths, so you may want to keep them in order as you take them out. Just line them up as you took them out. Pretty straightforward stuff really. Okay, we've got all the screws out now. So what we're going to do here is work at this area here. You can see there's some glue there, and there'll be glue underneath that area there. So we're just going to put a bit of heat to this just to loosen it up a little bit. Not too much. Same temperature, 250, and I'm just going to add a little bit of heat on that just to loosen it off. And I'm going to start prying from the bottom left hand side here. Just get underneath there, okay? Just do a little twist. You can do it whichever way you feel comfortable, but just until you hear it crack, it will make a little snapping noise. So just give it a little pry there, like so, until you loosen it up, and you can get your finger on the side of it. And once you've done that, now work away at this top left hand side. Now be very careful here, because there is a power ribbon right there. You can see I'm using a wide prying tool which is not touching the ribbon whatsoever, and then just lift off the 2 lugs here and lift away. Okay, so now we've got that off, we can move on to the next step, which is you can see the ribbon cable there. So what we're going to do here is get our plastic prying tool. There is a ribbon up the top here, so be very careful. Now you need to remove them 2 screws on that board which I pointed out, and just pry the board up a little bit, okay? Do not be tempted to use a metal tool here. Just use your plastic pry tool. You can see I've got my thumb on the actual power ribbon. Once I get my big arm out of the way, you'll see I've got my thumb on that board there, holding it down on there to make sure it doesn't break. Okay, just slightly lift it up. Now you won't be able to pull this up too far because the camera is still attached there. So we're going to pop this camera out in a second. You can't see that part there, but okay. So this is the ribbon cable that you do not want to break, okay, because if that does, the device will not power up. And there is a little tiny cable that's holding that camera, so we need to remove that metal shield from the camera. Now we've eased the board up, we can remove that little metal shield there. So I'm just going to use a pair of tweezers if I can, and just lift that little metal shield up and pop it out. We're going to put that back afterwards. Okay, that's now removed. Now with that removed, we can now just push out the actual camera, which is going to give us a little bit more space to work with. Okay, now be very careful with that board, because there is a little tiny strip on that board which you do not want to snap. So you just got to be a little bit patient here. Lift the camera out with that plastic pry tool. Some of them are a little bit tricky there. Just keep working away and it should just pop out like so. Use your finger and pull it back, and that will give you a little bit more room to lift up. Not much more. You can't go lifting that right up because you will break that power lead. You may hear a little cracking there as you lift. Okay, I'm just going to lift that back a bit. Now once we get that lifted back, we can then pull the actual digitizer cable. Now this is also held in with some copper tape. Just lifting the wireless antenna out of the way there and preparing it. Now just be very patient at this stage, okay? Just going to lift the tape out and pull the tape back. Now don't destroy this tape because you will need it, okay? And once you've done that, you should be able to lift off and pull that little ribbon out. You need to pick away at that tape. I've seen people not putting this tape back on. You do need to put it back on. Okay, so we're going to just work away. It's a bit fiddly, this part. And once you've got it off the tape, you can pull down and release that little lead. And it's a little bit more trickier to put back on, believe you me. So just be very patient. It's probably the tape that's holding that on a little bit there. I think we've got it free now. So I'm just going to lift that away from the actual device, as you can see. And that's the, we won't need this. So there's two little parts on here that we're going to be using to put back, okay? And that is the actual copper tape and the actual, I think it's like a grounding, something to do with grounding on the end there, like a little sticky grounding tape or something. Okay, so now we've got that off. That's that device sorted out now. Now we need to prepare our actual LCD screen and digitizer. You can get these freely on eBay and they vary in price, so you just choose which one you want to go for. So let's just rip this out of the pack. Now we don't need to worry about gloves at this stage because there is cover tape that's covering all the LCD, so it's not going to get finger marks on there. Okay, that's why I'm not wearing no gloves. You can see there is an actual cover strip on the back and on the front. There's the white, and on the front there. So what we're going to do here is we're going to prepare our actual home button here and our tape back and our little metal bracket. So let's get those prepared and ready. So here's our home button. Just going to plonk that back in. Sorry it went off a camera there. It's difficult doing it on your own and concentrating on what you're doing, but just line it up a little bit. Like so. And then we'll hopefully get this bracket on now. You can see here we need to put that back onto the actual part there, and there's a little tiny hole there. You'll see it, and I'll pause that and you can see the actual tiny hole. That needs to be lined up with the hole on the bracket on there. You can see that. So you just need to put a bit of glue on this if you need it. I'm using a bit of glue gel. Don't need a lot, just a little dab. Tiny little dab of that, not too much. You don't want it oozing out all over the place. Now if you don't get this set right, I have seen that these can cause white screen of death, so you've got to be careful, okay? Because I think if the metal doesn't touch down on that, you will get a white screen. So we'll just add that in and rub that glue across to spread it out a bit. I'm just using a screwdriver here. It's a throwaway screwdriver, we don't need those afterwards. And I'll put that into place, and then I'll put a bit of pressure on it to let that set off. It doesn't take long to set because it's super glue, so it shouldn't need too much pressure there. Just put a bit of pressure on there and line it up. And that should be that. Now these little bits are fiddly, so they do take a bit of time. But you can see there, that's how it should look roughly when it's done. So we're going to put the tape back on now, and also I think it's some sort of grounding pad or something like that, but we'll stick that on. So I'm going to take this off the old one, and there should be enough tack on that to stick that straight back onto the old one. Now I've seen people not putting these back on, but if it was on there in the first place, you want to put it back to how it was. It's there for a reason, so stick it back. Okay, so just put a bit of pressure on that and that should be fine. And it goes right at the end of the actual lead there, as you can see, right on the very end. And next bit we need to do is just put our copper tape on. I'll just pull this copper tape off and then stick that back on to the end of that ribbon. Now again, I've seen people not putting this back on. It's a little bit of hardship and a little bit of messing around, but if it was on there in the first place, you've got to ask the question why it was on there. So I would put it back on there, like so, and we'll just bend those back afterwards. They're round the wrong way at the moment. I'll bend them up the other way once we get it into position, but that's how it should look roughly. So let's offer this up to the actual device. Now this is a bit of a trial and error, okay, and it's really fiddly. You're working blind here and I can't get none of it on camera. You'll have my hand in the way. I'm just moving that little wireless antenna out the way, okay, because I don't want that getting trapped and being pulled down into the actual underneath the board there. So just line it up the best as you can. Now I would normally use tweezers here, but these tweezers haven't got much of a pressure grip on them to put pressure onto it, so I used a pair of long nose pliers or needle nose pliers. But if you've got a good sturdy pair of tweezers, then you could use those. And this bit is fiddly, so it may take you a few attempts to get it into place. And the thing to remember here is there is like a little connector with little teeth on it, so don't go pressing too hard in the wrong position, otherwise you will damage those teeth and you won't get it in. You should hear it just snap into place. Let's put a bit of pressure on, not too much, and you should hear it just click into place. Okay, you'll know when it's in there. We'll test it in a second to see if we get display. That is part of the power ribbon there. Okay, so I'm just checking there to make sure it's in, and once we've got that in, we can push the board back down now. Once we get that back in, we need to push the camera back in, and also make sure that little wireless antenna is not trapped in there when you push it back down. Okay, so I'm just pushing it out the way and putting the tape back on across the top of the actual ribbon there. You can't see it because my hand's in the way, sorry about that, but I'll show you hopefully what it will look like at the finish of it there. This is the worst part of this device, is doing this bit. As you can see, I'm just now pushing the camera back in to position and then popping that back down, and once we get that down, we should be able to push the board down into position there. Again, this is a real important part of it. This, as you can see, it's a bit fiddly. I'm just going to put that little metal shield back over the camera here. We're just going to drop that back on, and that just pushes it into place. Okay. It's a bit fiddly. Okay, so that one's in. So I'm just going to push that little wireless antenna down there. Okay, let's offer this up and see if we get display. So I'm just going to push this over and plug in the actual LCD now, and we should, and power up, and we should get some sort of display. If we don't, then it's not plugged in properly. Now you want to check everything here, make sure you're getting display and the actual swipe works and everything else, as you can see, and that all works fine. So just power off. Once we've got that powered off, we'll just disconnect that. Okay, now you just lift that back off and disconnect that LCD cable with your plastic spudger there. Okay, so we're ready to clean out any debris that may be inside there now. And also we're going to put our shield back. Just put the little lugs in first. And then put in all of your screws. And these are little tiny screws, and they're a bit fiddly, but just put those all back in. Okay, just screw the 2 in the ball, the first up the top. And then there's 8 that goes in the metal plate. So I'll shortcut this in a second. I'll just show you a couple of screws and then we'll move on to the next stage. Okay, so there you can see we've now got everything in place, and we just need to put these 8 screws back in now. And if you save them in the right location as you take them out, you just put them back as you took them out. Pretty straightforward stuff. And these little tiny screwdrivers are absolute crap. So if you've got a decent screwdriver, use those. Just trying to show you what you get with the kit and how you can use that sort of stuff really. Okay, so now we've got all the screws in, we're going to move on to the actual sticky tape here and put that in so we can get the screen glued down. I'm going to do one at the bottom and one at the top. And this is pretty straightforward stuff really. It just tucks underneath the gasket. So just stick that in. Just going to get a pair of tweezers to put that in. Okay, that's gone in better this time, and once I get that in, we'll just use the back of a spudger to rub that down. Okay, that's in position. Let's give that a rub. It is the back of your spudger's flat part there. You can use that to rub to make sure you get good contact on that. Okay, now I see people using a hot air gun to bond it up. I don't think there's no need for that really. But once I've got all this in place and put all these in position, I will put some glue on top of there, as you'll see in a bit. So make sure you got that right down in the corners here. I'm going to put some extra adhesive here, okay? Only a little bit round near the corners to make sure that you get a good bond. Now also down the edges, you may not get the actual strip that goes down the edges, okay? Now if you've got a very steady hand, you can put a small amount of glue down there, which I'd advise you to do to get a good bond and a good solid fixture of the actual screen itself, okay? You just get an old screwdriver here, what comes with a kit, and just rub that and smooth it around, okay? You don't want vast amounts, you don't want it squirting out all over the sides. Make sure you get all in the corners right underneath where the screen's going to slide into, okay? Okay, so one final clean up before we go in and put the screen down. Let's just pull off the actual protective coating on the back. Don't forget to take that off. And we're going to pull the front one off as well. And just push this in position, making sure your ribbon cables are tucked back. They have got natural folds in them, these ribbons, when you purchase the actual LCD screen and digitizer. So once you get that into position, you can pull off your other plastic topping. Okay. And then just push her in the front, get her into position. It's a bit of fiddling about getting your cables in the right area really. And final last check before you squash her right down. Put some pressure on it. And then just push a bit of pressure with your fingers, and there you go. You can see the finishing touch now, a little reset of the device here, because this is one I've purchased on eBay, and as you can see, got a nice flush finish. Reset it, and I will actually I did 2 of these in a short space of time. I bought 2 of these on eBay and repaired the screens on them. You can get them for a pretty cheap price, and they both look absolutely identical. Good finishes on them. So there you can see the actual finishing result. Not too bad. It's never going to be exactly the same as it was when you first got it. Just remember that. And what we're going to do here is, once we've done this, we're going to clean up the chrome part. And I'll show you how to do that in the next stage. So what we'll do here is get some actual chrome cleaner here. Now you can see on the back here it's full of loads of little scratches. Okay. I'm going to show you a little technique you can use to clean that up and get some of them little scratches out and get a nice shine to it. Now you don't have to do this part if you don't want to do that, but you can use Autosol or Auto Chrome, both the same stuff really, and just put your gloves on and away you go. Keep rubbing away in circles or in straight lines. I'm using a bit of cotton wool here. I'll move on to some microfiber cloth in a second. Now obviously you can spend a lot more time on this than what I'm going to do. And as I said, this part is not necessary, but these two were off of eBay and they were a bit grubby. And I only purchased these just to do the video for you guys, just to show you how easy it is. So we'll just clean these up. Now don't worry about the actual iPad or iPod logo, I should say, on the back. That won't come off. That's etched into the actual chrome itself. So I'm just going to get a microfiber cloth here so I can give that a buff up. Just give that a good rub. Get all the excess off. You can already see it starting to shine up. As you can see, quite a good finish. Now obviously the more applications you do of this, the more shiny it will get, and it will remove all those little scratches eventually. And there's a screenshot of the actual shine. It's pretty shiny. Okay, again we'll give it another application here, but I mean you can just keep adding until you think it's good enough, really. We'll just give it one more little attempt here. As I said, more stuff there. There's a bit too much cream by the looks of it there, but rub that in. So we'll just give this a final buff up and polish this up, and I think you agree that's not too shabby. Now obviously the more applications you do, the better shine you're going to get. So I think I'm going to call this one done. So I hope you enjoyed it. My name is Brian from briteccomputers.co.uk. If you enjoy these videos, guys, hit that subscribe button and show your support by rating and favouriting all my videos, and I'll be making more useful videos again in the future. Thanks again for watching, guys, and thanks for your support. Bye for now.